Now, here's another Everest Insight with Survivorman Les Stroud.
You know, we've all seen those Hollywood films where the action hero goes sliding down a mountainside out of control and in the very last second plunges his ice axe in and does a one-arm rescue. Looks good for film, but it ain't real. In fact, what it is a good way to pull the arm right out of its socket. What I'm going to show you is the proper method of self-arrest, one you can use on any climb, including one as big as Everest. When the slope gets this steep and the weather closes in like this, you've got to be prepared for the worst, and that includes going for a tumble. The proper way to hold on to an ice axe is tight to your body, keep the bottom end as leverage, and keep the sharp, spiky end away from your face. When you can, flip over to your stomach and jam it in. Kind of like this. Well, that's not quite as sexy as Hollywood. Then again, reality never is.
This has been an Everest Insight. We now return to Building a Thrill Ride Expedition Everest.
Pressure's on as the Imagineers begin the crucial test of their Expedition Everest design. They're about to run the coaster fully loaded around the track for the first time. They slowly move the train out of the maintenance building on a movable track table.
The heavier the train is, the faster it goes on the track. So we want to put some weight in here. We're putting 170 pounds per seat. These water dummies are acting as our guests for our first drop test. The purpose of the drop test is test to make sure that we've done our energy calculations correct on this design. We're just real excited. This is our first test. Let her go. Guys. Made it back. Way to go, guys. Good job. That was the first test. First time it's ever been around the mountain. We're excited.
There's one more thing the designers need to finish by opening day, and there'd be no attraction without it: the Yeti. The Yeti is the Himalayan version of the abominable snowman, Bigfoot. Some claim to have seen it, but no one can prove it exists, or even what exactly it may be. But we do know that it's embedded in Tibetan culture.
There are many, 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 many different ways that you see the Yeti. And you see the Yeti in the more elevated art that is associated with the Tibetan culture and the monastery and the fortress. And then you see the Yeti as a real living animal. We position the Yeti as justifiably angry. He is sabotaging the railroad. He's driving us out of the mountain. His message is you don't have a right to everything you might want to claim, right? And that's a good message in conservation.
If you come here to Expedition Everest, you want to see the legend of the Yeti brought to life.
Bringing an imaginary creature to life is the ultimate science project. The design team calls in an expert, a biologist. A brainstorming session may be the best way to make a monster that's part science fiction.
We have two approaches to how we deal with organisms that we've never actually seen, but we want to try and image for the public in 3 dimensions. We're starting with primates, things we know well, and we're taking component parts that we think are the most logical pieces for this character in this environment in this story.
The secret to breathing life into the Yeti was invented by Walt Disney himself.
Now, to accomplish this, we created a new type of animation. So new that we had to invent a new name for it.
Audio animatronics?
Right, audio animatronic.
It was a way for Disney to bring his animated characters from feature films into theme parks. This is where Disney created the most advanced animatronics creature ever, Expedition Everest's Yeti. Only a handful of Imagineers are allowed in this secret California laboratory. Disney invited Discovery's cameras in on one condition, that the Yeti's face be obscured by this plastic. They're trying to prevent a case of Yeti identity theft. But it seems like this creature could protect himself. He's 25 feet tall, 4 tons, about the size of a bull elephant, and very lifelike.
Throughout the figure, there are 19 separate functions that provide the motion that you see in the figure. The arm forward, the wrist, the elbow.
When I first ran it, I stood in front of it, and he just came right in front of my face, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is really amazing. This is going to scare people.
This Yeti is the single biggest dynamic figure that has ever been built. There is nothing that is this big, that moves this fast in the world of animation. It's really pretty cool.
This thing truly is a beast. So large and it's so dynamic that it couldn't be built like a traditional animated figure where his mass and movements were supported off of his legs. So what the engineers did is we designed a horizontal slide and a vertical slide in this long boom. And the boom actually goes into the Yeti's back. So he is suspended from that boom, goes in and out 5 feet, up and down 18 inches.
The Yeti's powered by a 3,000 PSI hydraulic thruster that can be recharged in 20 seconds to fit the storyline.
If you took all of the cylinders, the linear actuators on this, the thrust they produce is greater than a 747 airliner.
There's no question this monster's a marvel of engineering.
That's just one big machine.
So we're really reluctant, generally, to peel back the illusion and show you how it works. But in this case, the Yeti is such a tour de force of engineering itself, engineering apart from the illusion, that it's worth talking about the amazing work that's been done just by the engineers on this project alone.
If you took his arm off and looked at it and looked at his forearm truss section, you would think you were looking at a NASCAR or a F1 car without its body.
Making the Yeti's motions real and scary is the job of the animator.
Animating in traditional animation or film animation is you're just trying to get your shot right for the scene. With audio animatronics animation, we have to make sure it looks good from every angle because guests will be going through a three-dimensional space.
The animators produce position data. It tells each of the 19 functions what position they each need to be in for any particular scene of the show.
This console here that was developed back in the 1960s helps us to be more artistic with the figure, so we can go through it like a puppeteer would go through, but we also, with our graphical editor, have the ability to go through it frame by frame, just like you would in film animation with CG or traditional animation. As an animator, we always feel like we have to get into character, just like a method actor would. So I started by going to the zoo with my sketchbook, and I just watch the way they move, and I get a feel for, their motion.
Dreadlocks.
Dreadlocks.
A range of sizes,
Okay.
a range of thicknesses.
The finishing designer also looks to the animals for details like hair and nails, and then creates them in the lab.
The nails are molded part of the fiberglass body, and they're painted to look like dingy animal nails.
Then there's the skin-tight fur that fastens on like a bodysuit.
There are about 1,000 snaps fasteners on this beast. There are about 250 zippers, and there's about 1,000 square feet of fur fabric. The spandex layer goes underneath the fur, and it protects the fur from the mechanics on the inside.
All dressed up and ready to go, the Yeti makes a very scary picture.
When you're on the ride and you see the Yeti for the first time, you won't know what you're going to see. It's going to be this big moving mass. There's going to be hair and teeth and claws, and you won't really know what you're looking at. You'll have to go back several times.
When I did see the Yeti move as a finished creature, it was fantastic.
There's 4.5 days.
So cool. That looks great. I mean, it's just coming down.
Time to pack up the Yeti for the move from the lab in California to the lair in Florida, and make sure he's positioned to maximize the fear factor.